Okay, who are the mysterious people of ancient Arabia? Yeah, we're into the wonderful Ethiopians of the Ancient Cushite Empire. We're bundling some chapters together. This is, I think, chapters 11 through 13. This is Houston goes into a broader argument tracing the influence of the Ancient Cushite Empire with uh, the Middle East or Arabia. That's what they would call it. So Houston's work representing a counter narrative of like the Eurocentric view. So let's get into it. Let's get into it. Now, this is what she says. Arabia was once a portion of the ancient Kushite Empire. Yeah, was once a portion of the ancient Kushite Empire. She makes the case that ancient Arabia was originally inhabited, say, by the Kushites or the Ethiopian people, and it was part of a larger cultural, political sphere dominated by this group of people. So, the narrative, or she builds on the fact that um, the borders were larger. The borders were larger. It spanned into Yemen and southern Saudi Arabia. Um, and so the development of ancient civilizations across much of Africa into the Middle East and even parts of Asia. So ancient Kush was not just along the Nile River Valley, y'all. It pushed eastward. Okay, it moved eastward. And this is the area right here. This is Yemen. Shout out to the family Yemen and Ethiopia. Right, you see how close they are? They're basically across the street. Across the street. So I think that we need to talk more about that. We need to get more into it about how we handle these empires. And we have to know, we have to realize that they were right next to each other. They was right by each other. So it was nothing for them to work with each other and to do things together. All right, so let's go. Now, Kush and Arabia. Kush and Arabia, the history of Arabia needs to be rewritten. That's the bottom line. It needs to be redone, rehashed, or however you want to say it. It's for so long that society only hears one side of it. It only hears one portion of it. And so um, I believe because Arabia has, in the average book is described as a barren place, a dreary, barren wasteland. That's what she described it as. And Yemen was considered to have been a province of ancient Ethiopia. Let's talk about it. Okay. And so we have to realize that these facts have to be told. This information has to be shared. So she emphasized that in the book, she emphasized that Kushite influence extended deeply into Arabia. She identifies various ancient Arabian tribes and cities, arguing that their origins can be traced back to the Kushites. She wasn't lying. Where is there any original people in Yemen pre-Ethiopia, before Ethiopia? All right. Now, she, of course, challenges the prevailing historical narrative that have placed origins in the Arabian civilization solely with the Semitic people. And we're going to go into further into detail about that. The ancient inhabitants of Arabia Petrae were the Anuak people of ancient Kemet. Yeah. And there is some similarity between Semitic and Arabian and Kushite Ethiopia, even in language. Even the language between the Yemen and Ethiopia are very similar. I think somebody asked me about the linguistics of I forgot what they was talking about. They asked me about the language connection uh, between um, the various groups of people along the Nile Valley. Their languages are very similar, y'all. I think they was trying to separate, Egypt as well as the southern part of Sudan and many others, but the languages are very similar. Houston makes a case that the ancient Arabia was originally inhabited by Kushite or Ethiopian races and was part of a larger cultural and political sphere dominated by Africans. Africans were everywhere, okay? And the Kushites were the original Arabians and dwelt there before Abraham came to Canaan. Okay, and that's page 113. Just a side note, when Moses left Egypt for the first time. When he left biblically, for those who are in the Bible and things like that, the priest of Midian was already there. All right. And so they lived in Arabia without mingling until Ishmael, the son of Hagar, settled among them. That's a fact. Okay, there were African people in Arabia before Moses, before Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They was already there. Okay, I don't want to go off the beaten path or further into things, but we have to realize that Africa has been around for eons before a lot of the established norms that we have today. All right, so we have to realize that there are some cultural and religious similarities between these groups that lasted for a long time before before Ishmael, before many others. Let's continue. Now, the Sabean kingdom, this was new to me. This was new to me. The Sabean group of people. I never heard of these people. For real, y'all. I never heard of them. It's pretty cool. You learn something new every day. And so one of the key focuses in these chapters is the Sabian civilization, which is based in what is today Yemen. Man, they got their own language and written and text and architecture and everything. Okay, it's located in Yemen, founded the kingdom of Sheba. Well, Yemen, the people of Yemen, the Sabian kingdom founded the kingdom of Sheba, often considered to be a Semitic people. They have strong Cushite roots, or at least they're heavily influenced by the Cushite culture. There is a natural connection. There is a natural connection between the Sabians to the large Ethiopian cultural sphere and contends that their advancement in trade, agriculture, architecture were derived from the Cushite people. They were right next door, y'all. They was right next to each other. It was like two towns about 100 miles apart. They had to interact. They had to trade. They had to probably have a few disputes. All right. Let me know if you want me to go into more about the Sabian kingdom. Put it in the comments below, because this is new. I need to get into this. It's pretty cool. All right. So the Sabians were great builders, and the monumental architecture such as dams and temples bears similarity to ancient Cushite works in other regions, particularly in Egypt and Ethiopia. So Houston also in the book explores how the Sabians were integral in the spread of Kushite civilization, serving as intermediaries in trade between Africa and Asia. They were the mediators. They were those port cities that we talked about, like when Tutmosis III, he went up to the Battle of Megiddo. He situated himself in Megiddo and made a port there, where that port was a exporting city, received trade, received money, and everything else. Yemen became that group of people. The Sabian kingdom was those people. It was a bridge that connected Africa to Asia. Shout out to the Yemen fan. What's up? Now, who in this time, I want to know, tell me in the comments, who was the most famous ancient Ethiopian monarch in this era? Y'all let me know. Okay. Who was the most famous? Okay. Let's go. You know it. Queen of Sheba, Makeda. She was a key figure. Everybody knows about the Queen of Sheba. Matter of fact, she has a name, y'all. Makeda. Queen of Sheba. She plays an important role in both biblical and Ethiopian tradition. Much love to the Ethiopian fam. Love you guys. Houston aligns with the Ethiopian tradition that sees Sheba as part of the broader Ethiopian or Cushite Empire rather than exclusively Semitic and Arabian. She is African. Just like Yemen bridged the gap between Africa and Asia, the Queen of Sheba bridged the gap between the Arab people and the Semitic people. But she was African and she belonged to us, right? Now Houston argues that the queen was a part of the Cushite ruling class and dominated the Arabian Peninsula before the later arrival of the Semite people. And we know the story. We know how she was married to King Solomon. We know those stories. But her story has to be told also, because she has a legacy too. And think about this. Think about it. How many Candics that came after her? Matter of fact, what about the queens that came before her that paved the way for her to be the Queen of Sheba? Let me know. Okay, let's get into it. And so we know the historical significance between Ethiopia and Arabia, as well as how it shaped the religious and cultural heritage of those regions. So it's very important that we yield and acknowledge our monarchs and recognize them as our own. You see, they have their kings and queens, we have our own, and we need to embrace them. All right, let's continue. Now, the Arabian religion and culture before Islam. Let's get into it. Now, the Arabian religion and culture, they were closely aligned with those of the Kushites for many, many centuries. The religious systems of early Arabia, including the worship of the sun, moon, bear striking resemblance to other Kushite religions, religious traditions found in Africa. Houston delves into the religious practices of ancient Arabia, suggesting that they are aligned, and she argues that these systems include ancestral veneration, right? And so the emphasis on fertility, deities, and the veneration of natural forces. Houston believes that these were Kushite traditions in Arabia, right? And so she also goes into the language, as we talked about before, and how they were closely connected. And so she asserts that the language spoken by the earliest inhabitants of Arabia were Kushite. All right. Now, the impact of Kushite and Arabian trade. There was trade between Arabia and other parts of the ancient world. As you can see, Yemen is right here at the southern part of the Arabian Desert, and Aksum or Ethiopia is right next door. You see how the trade route goes up and down the Nile Valley, and some goes eastward towards India, and then some goes westward towards the Bilal Sudan. Okay, these are trade routes long before Europe got here. Africa has always had some sort of trade, some sort of economic system going on. And so the role of the Kushite people in facilitating these commerce is essential. Yemen bridged the gap between Africa and Asia. The ancient trade routes that passed through Arabia connecting Africa, Asia, and Europe were, according to Houston, initially controlled by Kushite people. Yeah, Kushites control that. And of course, we talked about how later on in the Middle Ages, when Europe finally expanded and went into India, they found that there were some Moors out already there asking, "Where's your paperwork?" They were saying, "Hey, you're not on the list. Why are you here?" All right, check it out. Now, and I'm done, but coming up, I'm excited about this. Queens of the South next spring, or the ladies of the North and South. We kind of touched on, we dealt with Queen of Sheba real quick, but we're going to get with our queens of the South, the ladies of the North and South. I'm very excited about this, y'all. All right, now, of course, the next book, the first female pharaoh, Sebek Neferu, Goddess of the Seven Stars. The link is in the description. I really appreciate it. What's next? We're going to get into these next chapters. I'm sorry, I did say chapters 11 to 13. I touched on, I think, 8 through 10, but we'll cluster them together. For more on Ancient Kush, let's check out Sister Danita Smith, Yaya Sabaka, Home Team, AE Learning, and here's some more books: Arabian and the Arabs, okay, by Robert Holian, Babylon by Paul Griswizek. Of course, we have our own Makeda, Queen of Sheba, by Robert Harrell. The link is in the description. And Keba Nagast, Queen of Sheba, and her son, our only son, Melalek, all right, by E.A. Wallace Budge. All right, you just got to listen to King Cam and Ujumbe podcast on Ujumbe Me's Message, and I will talk to you later.